Hey, welcome everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to today's training on the importance of restorative justice in an SYTF collaborative court. I will be emailing the handout with the PowerPoint slides and the MCLE proof of attendance later this afternoon. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to ask any questions by typing them into the chat. Our presenters will answer all questions at the end during the Q&A session. Also, please note that this training is being recorded. With this, I'm going to pass it to Jane Brownstone. Jane, we can't hear you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to spend your lunch hour with us. My name is Jane Brownstone, and I'm a Deputy District Attorney with Los Angeles County. And I'm here with my counterparts, Deputy District Attorney Courtney Dyer, Deputy Public Defender Liz Braunstein, and Deputy Alternate Public Defender Jamie Marcus. And together we handle LA's secure youth treatment facility courts. If your case is in an SYTF court, that means three things. One, your case is amenable for juvenile court. Two, the offense committed in your case is likely very serious. In LA, most likely it means it's a homicide. And three, the youth that committed that offense is going to be returned to the community, likely sooner rather than later. Now, generally, when we're dealing with these cases, the prosecution is focused on how we can best protect our victims and the community, and defense is focused on how they can best serve their client. Now, traditionally, these goals have always been viewed as at odds with one another. However, recently, the California legislature has adopted the practice of restorative justice, which operates to make these traditional goals of defense and prosecution compatible with one another rather than adverse to one another. Today, we're going to talk about how the role of restorative justice is successfully operating in our SYTF collaborative court, and we're going to introduce you to an incredible organization that has been a vital role in that process, and that is Healing Dialogue in Action. And we are lucky enough to have a group of incredible representatives from that organization who we work with every single day. So we hope you enjoy our presentation.
So before we get to HGA, we just wanted to quickly go over what is restorative justice. The legislature, codified and incorporated restorative justice into Assembly Bill 60, which was passed on October 8th, 2023. The legislature finds and declares as follows: a restorative justice is a practice and theory rooted in and developed from Indigenous practices. When put into practice, restorative justice is a community-based, non-punitive set of processes that center the needs of people who have been harmed. Restorative justice encourages accountability, healing, and repair when harm has occurred. These processes can include facilitated meetings between the person who was harmed, the person who harmed them, family members, and members of the community to discuss the causes and impact of the harm. Next slide.
Many people think that restorative justice was created with a one-sided perspective, an attempt to maybe provide softer punishment to the offender. However, when you look through the amendments that California Assembly Bill 60 added to both the Penal Code as well as the Welfare and Institutions Code, much of the thought and intention surrounding the statute surrounds ways to uplift the survivor, ways to make sure that their needs are known and addressed, met by creating a statutory authority for the next of kin and survivors of crime to not only have a voice in proceedings, but also in an attempt to understand what the judicial system can do to support them. In my experience as a prosecutor, having the statutory authority behind anything helps a lot with my arguments in court. Here, this statute, this assembly bill, provides us with authority to make sure that survivors have a seat at the table, should they want it. And it provides me, as the prosecutor, with the opportunity to pass the microphone to the people that have really actually experienced this great harm, and to make sure that their needs are known and supported, as well as everyone getting an opportunity to listen. So while, some people think that restorative justice is maybe all about the offender, a lot of the restorative justice or the language in the bill is designed to uplift and support survivors and victims next of kin. Next slide.
So the big question, does restorative justice work? And the legislature in Assembly Bill 60 references certain specific studies, and it does. In 2015, there was a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Experimental Criminology, and it found that restorative justice can reduce a lot of the trauma that victims experience due to being the victim of crime. It can help with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression. It can also help the offender as well. It can reduce recidivism. There were studies done in the county of Alameda with the youth diversion program as well, and it showed documented successes throughout the state of California. Now, the Secure Youth Treatment Facility is obviously a newer program, so we don't have as much data as to specific restorative justice with the Secure Youth Treatment Facility. However, you are going to meet members from the Healing Dialogue and Action organization, and they are going to be perfect examples with themselves to explain to you how restorative justice has been successful in their lives and how they have helped others along that path as well.
So it's important to remember that the youth that we're representing, the youth that are part of the SYTF, have, for the most part, suffered immeasurable traumas and hurts on their own. There's a significant overlap between the population that are considered to be those that are the offenders and those that are the survivors. And often those lines are very, very, very blurred. A survivor today can be a victim tomorrow. And we find that our youth, for the most part, studies have shown that nearly 90% of them have suffered incredible traumas, according to the ACE scores. And SB 23 really seeks to use public health interventions to help rehabilitate these youth who are so much a part of the community. When the people talk about, the opposites, the community that they're looking at for the community, the survivors, these youth are also part of the community. So it's really a shift and it's a holistic response because, the saying is hurt people hurt people. And at some point, these youth are going to be returned to our communities. And we need to help provide a world where they're not haunted by what they've done, by what's been done to them, by what's happened to them in custody. And this is really part of healing the community as a whole. Courtney?
So AB 60 amended several sections of not only the penal code, but also the welfare and institution code. We're here, since we're talking about juvenile justice, we are here talking about the juvenile code or welfare and institution code, specifically section 742C. The inclusion of restorative justice practice into the statute requires all of us as officers of the court to follow that authority. Not only does AB 60 provide statutory authority for the application of restorative justice in the courtroom, but it also mandates certain action be taken by law enforcement agencies in regard to the rights of survivors and next of kin to remain as informed as they wish to be. Survivors and next of kin are not mandated to buy in, but we as officers of the court, prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, are mandated by statute to provide survivors and next of kin everything that's listed in AB 60, which includes many sections on the importance of restorative justice. Next slide.
So like Courtney said, restorative justice isn't just this, touchy-feely thing. It's incredibly powerful, and it has these rehabilitative properties that I think that we had heard about, but, Jane, Courtney, Jamie, and I really were, overwhelmed. We were floored when we saw, how restorative justice really works. I'm going to change the names, but we had an experience with a youth, we'll call him John, who admitted to taking the life of, we'll say, Jane's son. And Jane being this incredible, incredible woman who we can't even really explain the depths of her heart and of her forgiveness and of her desperation, started coming to court and made herself available to John. She learned that John had lost his mother to an illness and saw that nobody was coming to court for John. And she felt that in order to heal herself, she needed to be that motherly figure that was accepting of John. And she needed to give John the ability to forgive himself. To this day, she comes to court and there's not a dry eye in the courtroom. And this is something that, when John was ready for it, he's been able to respond. And it's really been instrumental in his healing and his journey. For Jane, it was the lifeline that she needed. And she has since become, a productive member of HDA who tells her story and speaks about survivor, what it's like to be a survivor and how she's learned how to go on with her life and find a purpose for herself. And that includes having John in her life. It's the most powerful thing that I've experienced in 25 years as a public defender. Next slide.
We have all tried to tackle restorative justice and how best to implement it in our SYTF courts. I know we have found that our absolute best resource is Healing Dialogue in Action, or HDA for short, which is an organization that was founded by Javier Starring. And I'm going to turn it over to Javier now to talk all about HDA and his amazing organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We're very grateful for this opportunity. And it's the spirit of our work, being in relationship with people, that is really at the center of restorative justice work. It's relational work. It's being in relationship with people that often feel alone in the darkest places that they've experienced in their life. And we try to connect them with people that have not just similar lived experience, but what we refer to as wounded healers, and who you're going to meet some of my colleagues right now. They're people that really have reflected and studied their own healing journey so that they can serve as an example to others who that are in situations that my colleagues were in. At Healing Dialogue in Action right now, we have 32 employees. Out of the 32, there are 2 of us who were not either sentenced to life in prison and or had a loved one murdered. And so these are the folks that do the work of accompaniment. My background, I've been doing restorative justice work for almost 4 decades now. It's just that the first 3 decades I refer to it as ministry. I was a chaplain at Central Juvenile Hall and then became the director of the Ministry of Restorative Justice for the Archdiocese of LA. And when I started out as chaplain, it was just detention ministry, accompanying the young incarcerated people. But as I build relationships with the young people that I was accompanying, it became clear to me that they weren't the only ones suffering. And I remember being in the chapel and asking the young people, who do you think suffers more with your incarceration? And at that time, I'm talking about late 80s, 90s, when every young person coming to juvenile hall with a serious crime like a SYTF crime were tried as adults, right? So it was a different time when there was a lot of hopelessness. And I would ask the kids, who do you think suffers more? And all of them would agree that their parents suffer more, right? That their moms suffer more. So we developed a ministry to accompany families of the incarcerated. And soon after that, the obvious thing that was missing was a ministry to accompany victims and survivors of crime. And so it's that same model that we brought over to Healing Dialogue in Action. It's a nonprofit now that has been in operation for 8 years. But the real gift of Healing Dialogue in Action are the wounded healers, the people that do the work. These are folks, some of whom I've met 30 years ago at juvenile hall when they were first arrested, and then continued to accompany them in the adult system. So folks that you're going to meet today, like Josh and Edwin, right? They're folks that I met in prison that I was a part of the sharing that they did in circles where they reflected on the harm that they encountered and how that played a role in their actions in hurting others, and created deep empathy for the people that they had harmed, and a commitment to live a life of amends like nobody else has. So again, it's really that that is the key to this work, right? That we have incredible human beings that have decided to dedicate their life to help others that suffered in the same ways that they have suffered. And I'll just leave it at that for right now, because we want to leave time for questions and answers as well. And so if we can go on to the next slide, and I'll have my colleagues just introduce themselves. If you want to start off, Edwin, and then just pass it on.
Thank you, Javier. Hi, hello, my name is Edwin Paragas. I'm the reentry manager for Healing Dialogue in Action. To talk about my role, I want to just give a little background, like Javier mentioned, who we are and the people is walking in this type of work. I was incarcerated when I was 16. My first time actually was 12, but my life crime, I committed a life crime at 16 years old. And inside prison is when I really trying to really transform and really picking up the tools. But one, the most impactful probably is when I met Javier at Healing Dialogue in Action. I was already taking classes. I was already picking up the life tools, but something was still missing with my transformation. And that transformation is to really put myself, in my victim's shoes. I took a life at 16 years old, and there was a lot of shame piece in that, and something that I didn't want to face. It was really hard to face until I met Javier and brought survivors in, and to really look the anguish and the pain in their eyes is why I became, part of Healing Dialogue's family, because I want to live, a life of service. I don't want no more other families to go through what I put people in, for taking a life. So when I met Javier, I was like, you know what, this is my purpose, this is my calling, this is my dedication to ensure no other families will ever go through what I put them. So when I got out at 2019, after 24 years in prison, I was at Javier's door. It's like, Javier, let me be part of your tool. Let me be part of your mission to ensure that this don't happen again. So I joined Healing Dialogue in Action 5 years ago.
And let me just say that it's not so much my vision. My vision came from all of you guys, from me, And where's the first place that we went, Edwin, when you got out?
Yeah. So he picked me up from a transition home the first week I was out. Like, hey, hop in. It was actually a brand new car. Hop in my car, and I gotta take you somewhere. He took me to a retreat where there's 18 mothers of a loss. They lost their loved ones in gun violence, and that was really impactful for me. Just seeing those mothers of the pain they went through. And I felt like, what am I doing here out here? What am I doing here to sit with all these mothers? But a person took their life. And each one of those mothers looked at me and said, I forgave you, and gave me a hug. A lot of them didn't speak English, but the way they cared for me is something that was forever I will always carry. And that's gives me the fuel why I do what I do. So, like I said, I am a manager. We'll talk about that later on, but that's why I'm in this type of work. Josh?
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. I see a pattern here with Javier, what he does to people when they come home. Um, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joshua Pinedo. I'm the Deputy Director at Healing Dialogue. You know, I come from a dysfunctional background, like most of the youth that we see in the SYTF. You know, found myself in the system at a young age, um, and got sentenced to life in prison at the age of 18. It was 20 years into my sentence when I met Javier 11 years ago, at a time when I think SB 261 was going through the legislature. And if it was passed, it would give me an opportunity to go to the parole board. You know, meeting him um, was the first time that I had met anybody from the community. You know, I had been stuck over the grapevine for many, many years. And, you know, people don't make their way up there to, you know, to be in community with people who are incarcerated. So meeting him is a beautiful experience, and introduced me to restorative justice. And, you know, fast forward, I think this is one of the most significant things that's ever happened to me. When I came home, Javier picked me up at transitional housing, the same place Edwin was, and I went to a gathering with mothers who had loved ones incarcerated and mothers who had loved ones murdered. And there, I had met a mother of a man who attacked me in prison. He was part of 5 men who attacked me and stabbed me. And we talked to his mom, and we never told her how I knew her son, but I gave her a lot of hope that one day he would come home. And, you know, fast forward a couple months ago, he got found suitable for parole. I was part of his hearing. You know, I offered him job. He sat in my circle. This is what restorative justice is, and this is what gives me fuel. Um, Now we're waiting to hire the man. He's gotten out. I've done his onboarding paperwork, and soon, you know, everybody in LA will get a chance to meet Carlos. And you know, the last thing I want to say is, um, I met John, you know, a year and a half ago, and traveling with him through juvenile hall, and I was there in the courtroom when that amazing, you know, situation happened with Jane. It's just been a beautiful journey, and I just want to commend everybody that's been a part of it, because the DAs and the district attorneys, it takes all of us. We bring something, but it takes everybody to create that moment that we had, and it's something that I will forever remember. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Luisa.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luisa, and I'm the Youth and Family Services Coordinator for Healing Dialogue in Action. 18 years ago, my 14-year-old son was tried and sentenced as an adult. Um, he got a sentence of 50 to life, and for the first 3 years, the pain that I went through, it was so big that I had to stop working. I couldn't drive one day coming back from court. I was so confused that I got lost in the same freeways that I used to drive every single day. And after doing therapy and medication for 3 years, I found a, a priest that invited me for a retreat with parents of incarcerated children. And that was when I was able to share my pain and understand that I wasn't alone. Despite the emotional and financial burden, I visited my son every weekend when he was in juvenile hall. As the months turned into years, he was transferred to the adult institution, And, those visits got too expensive sometimes for me to visit, after 15 years, I believe. And doing what I do for Healing Dialogue and Action has helped me. I found my way to heal myself. Every time I sit in circle with these moms with incarcerated children, I heal a little bit each time. So, yes, thank you.
Lorena.
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 I was gonna say, I think that leaves me for last. Hi, my name is Lorena Alejandro. I am the Survivor Program Coordinator, um, one of a few great team members. I came to this work last year I came to HCA, but before that I was working as anger management instructor, and I was working in reentry, helping adults prepare for, their parole hearings by giving them curriculums that they would need, and, just trying to find that insight. In 2023, my world and my whole career shift changes when my son Marco was stabbed, and he later on died at the hospital. Um, I, I it changed not just my whole world, but my perspective of it. Um, the world started looking scary, and I started becoming angry. Being an anger management instructor, instead of using my anger in a way to harm myself, I used it as a voice to advocate for myself. Because unfortunately, in my son's case, the person responsible was not tried. So it was really hard to sit in the same court that would lock me up when I was younger, and them telling me that I would not find any justice. So instead of being angry and going down a path of probably a lot of grief and just self-harm, I used my voice and I advocated, and with that voice I found HDA. And HDA has given me the opportunity and the platform to not just share my story, but I'm also helping others and putting their lives back into perspective, and trying to help them pick up the pieces. Although I'm doing that, at the same time, they're building me and repairing me and giving me the tools that I didn't even realize that I needed. So I'm here and I advocate not just for the parents who have lost loved ones, but also the ones that are inside as well, because my heart feels on both ends. And and I'm really just, grateful for not just the opportunity, but the program that we have, and the people that I work alongside with, because it has been um, detrimental to my healing journey.
Go to the next slide, and we're going to start sharing about what we do. I think Josh.
Yes. So in a nutshell, about 3 years ago, we started going into juvenile hall at Barry J, following Javier's steps of accompanying young people. And then it looks like when this bill passed and restorative justice, is introduced to the county, we start running healing circles in juvenile hall. The SYTF population had just started, so we start working with the first kids that are being sentenced to SYTF, and John was one of them. Through that, we were able to introduce all the things that we learned in prison, right? Because most of us had to go to the parole board. We had to learn deep insight for three big components. And it's like, how did you become the way you were? How did you change that? And how can you prove you'll never do it again? So we started introducing concepts to the young people. And I'll just say now, at both institutions in LA, we have victims awareness classes going. We have parenting classes going. We have Criminal Gangs Anonymous. We have so many groups going, and they're being introduced to concepts that I never heard of when I was a kid, because I went to the juvenile system. Now they know, what insight is, and what triggers are. And we're just working really hard to give them the experience that most of us had in prison, which really helps you develop empathy. It's difficult, right? Because we know their brains are not fully developed, but we're hitting from every angle we can, and we continue to shift as the need arises.
Yeah, to talk about a little more the victim awareness classes. Yeah, I think for me personally, this is HTA, this is our jewel. Like for me, this is what impacted me the most is when I was introduced inside prison. So we wanted to really to offer that. And before we became Clever Messengers, we started offering victim aware classes. I remember the board of supervisor asking Javier, what can we do? What can you really provide in juvenile hall? And one of our biggest thing is our healing circles. And that's how we really got introduced and trusted inside the partnership we have inside juvenile halls and courts. And one of the healing circles, we provide healing circles inside juvenile hall, CVK. We provide healing circles out in the community, and we also it's not just offering. We also offer healing circles. And one of the two incidents that I think we wanted to uplift is the two healing circles we had in Camp Kilpatrick. When one of the youth, one of the first youth was found with the contraband, instead of sending them back to Barry J, we had a healing circle with probation, with DMH, with LACO, with all the providers in partnership. And I think even Liz was there. That type of circle and that type of voices uplifted not only youth, uplifted CVK and it is CVK's culture. I think it stems from that. And the other one was when we had a healing circle with Gaston. When Gaston was there, he heard from probation, he heard from the youth of the impact of what he was doing. I think that was also key. But one of the things is really crucial with our healing circles is we constantly inviting survivors in our healing circles like Lorena. And having a survivor live what she lived and seeing the youth really seeing the anguish is so crucial to what we're trying to do. And Lorena, if you want to talk a little more of how that healing circle was experienced for you with the youth also.
Sure. So I shared my story amongst, I think it was 15 youth. And during that time, of course, it's really hard, but you try to just get through the story, right, as much as you can. And especially dealing with youth, sometimes, they don't really know how to handle their emotions, so it could be a little scary. But this particular experience, like most experiences, you really get to look around the room and see their hurt in their face and the maybe shame that they're going through, even if it's something that they're not admitting to themselves. They know inside how they feel. Um, in order to do this, for us as survivors, it's kind of going through it over and over again, but it's also very healing. And it is something that I look forward to now versus something that I'm so scared to do. Before, I would tell the group, like, hey, I'm really nervous and I've done this a bunch of times, but to be able to help these youth and for them to hug me after or tell me they're sorry, with losing my son, I feel like I've gained a whole group of boys now, that I'm able to not just share my story, but also foster maybe something that they're lacking as well inside. So to be able to give back to them and to see their progress and to see how my story has changed their life or how they know my son by first name as if they were friends. It's just an experience that you cannot explain unless you're there.
Yeah, maybe to speed this up a little bit and we cover all the programs. Lorena, if I could ask you to share about one particular case that we just went to the sentencing, right? And this is a young man who practically grew up at juvenile hall here in LA, went in, I think, at the age of 14, came out around 21. And well, we were just at the sentencing, right? And I was asked to speak at the sentencing. And I looked at the young man and I said that I apologized to him because I felt like the system let him down. You know, he spent 7 years at juvenile hall. And I apologized to him and his family because I felt like the community let him down because he had a second chance of coming home and there wasn't the support that he needed. And then I was there accompanying the mother of the victim, and I told her how she was now part of the HDA family, and that she would continue to have our support. And I wanted you to share a little bit of how you've accompanied that mom, you know. And let me just say, for the participants hearing these stories, obviously, if it gets a little difficult, or, you know, take a break, get offline. We believe that the wounds that people carry of this type are deep, and they require to go deep. So it's part of our spirit to create these safe spaces so that people feel courageous enough to share. And we know that sometimes in public, they can be a little hard to listen to. So please take care of yourselves.
Of course, thank you, Javier. So this particular case that I sat in with and accompanied actually happened to be one of the first case that I've sat in at all since my son passed away. So for myself, it was particularly hard. But we helped each other through it, right? So with this particular case, it was something that was publicly known because this was during the time where we were going up for elections with the DAs. So it was something that was very public, and she just had such a hard time dealing with it. So we were there from beginning to end. So when the news came out, we all heard about it, and that's when she realized that this kid had committed a similar crime before. During that time, um, her and I have helped her navigate through different resources that could help her. One of them being I helped her with victims compensation, making sure that she wasn't the one handling the paperwork, because sometimes it was just too overwhelming. I would be the one to sit there, print out whatever she needed, and just kind of navigate her through who to speak with, talking to representatives my own self, and then also ultimately using some of my personal referral connections, and helped her get into therapy and get the things that she needed after her son moving on. We sat in court through beginning through end, um, a lot of crying, a lot of holding hands. And there was just so many times that she expressed to us that she don't know how she would have even been able to be in court to see these guys had it not been for us sitting with her. Luisa sits in court with us as well. This particularly woman, she suffers both losses. She has a son that is incarcerated and is spending time in CDCR, and during the same time, she's lost her son. So the amount of support that we were able to give her through this process, um, she is tremendously grateful for. It has helped her being able to not just get through it, but now she's accompanying us as well into prisons, and she's talking to gentlemen herself and giving her story. And her story is much more sooner, but because of the help of HDA and all the support that she receives, and being able to be around other gentlemen and women that have committed this crime, just like myself, it has helped her to give hope to see that people that take lives, they're not necessarily monsters as we see, right? They're humans that have made mistakes, and they're capable of rehabilitation. She Moving forward to the sentencing was particularly very hard because she did feel that it just was unfair. But something that I have tried to always empower her to is it's not about the sentencing, right? It's about the healing journey afterwards. It's not about the time, because they could be gone away forever and our sons will not come back. So my point of empowering her is not to be angry, but just we move on, and she has been able to do that. And anytime that she feels anything, she feels free to reach out to us, and I have continued to help her navigate afterwards as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Lorena. And so HDA is trying to create a vision of a justice system that prioritizes the needs that people that enter the system have, the needs that they have to uh, I'm not going to say become whole again, because many times that doesn't happen, but to get to a better place. So prioritizing that, we have the credible messengers, that work with the young people inside. We have the reentry that work with the young people coming outside. We have families of the incarcerated with Luisa that works with the families, and we have the victims and survivors program, right? So it's the model of not making any differentiations between the populations, just recognizing that we're all human beings and we all have a right to heal. And so if Edwin and Josh, if you want to talk just a little bit quickly about the credible messenger reentry, and then we'll pass it over to Luisa to just share a little bit about the family program, and hopefully leave some time for questions and answers.
Absolutely. And I'll be brief. Right now, we actually are in partnership with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. We have staff members that are working 8 hours a day inside the correctional facilities at Barry J and Campus Kilpatrick. We also have credible messengers working in the community, checking on the young people that are in transitional housing. We've adjusted and just went with the flow. We've been very fluid as SYTF started, and we're going to continue to do that to support these people that are transitioning.
The reentry piece is really crucial. I think is the later piece after we became credible measures. Just fulfilling the needs, accompanying a lot of the youths and survivors inside court. We noticed that there was the aftercare and the continuous care was lacking. So me and Josh actually like every single day, working actually just picking up youth, making sure we accompany them. Now we have a reentry program. So like what Josh says, we're also not only accompanying them inside, but also helping them outside to accompany them. We are pretty much the bridge to the community, and that's the reentry program we offer. Luisa?
Yes, the family support groups, it started when I shared my story inside Kilpatrick with a few young men, and having a young man crying, telling me that he wished he could be able to take away my pain. I mean, he really touched my soul because it has been very difficult for myself, and I know there are other families going through the same, because for a mother's heart it doesn't matter if it's a year to 15, it is very hurtful. And some of these families don't speak the language, they do not know the court proceedings, and they do not understand. Sometimes they're not in a good place to understand the proceedings. And we try to work with that. At HDA, we know each family is unique, each story deserves the same respect, and we try to heal those family ties, because we believe that when they do come home, they need to come home to a family who's healed, you know and we try to bring the restorative justice approach to the family as well. We want to work, with those moms, understanding the pain and hurt that the victim's mom it's enduring, right? And I have a few moms that express themselves to me that they want to write a letter to the victim's mom. They wish they could say, they're sorry for their son's behavior, and for their the hurt they are responsible for.
Thank you, Luisa. Yeah, so I hope you folks get the idea, right? That it's really this is more than work for us. This is a calling, and what we have found is that it can be replicated. It can grow. We started out with literally 4 people, and now we're 32, and and we consider it a gift to be able to do this work. So I'll pass it on to the attorneys. If you, I'll just mention, because I noticed victim offender dialogue, right? Uh, we're one of 4 organizations statewide that do victim offender dialogues between family of the victim and the person responsible for the harm. We focus specifically on homicide cases. And if interested, that there was a program that Van Jones produced for CNN a couple of years ago called the Redemption Project. If you look up the Redemption Project, it has a couple of our victim offender dialogues in the adult system. This is something that I can tell you in the 4 decades that I've been doing this work, nothing has greater potential to bring healing to both sides than these dialogues. And I hope that we can find ways to make it more available to the families that are going through the SYTF model, in particular because victims have been told for so long that the closure that they need will come after a harsh sentence. And in SYTF, to begin with, that's not happening. These guys are getting out. People are getting out 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So I really see it as one offer that can be made to the victims of crime, to give them the opportunity to sit down with the person that harmed them, to ask them why did they do it, to find out if that person feels remorse, to figure out if they think they'll ever do it again. So I really hope that we move VODs forward. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in, Javier. So do you have a process or something in place for a youth who really would like to engage in a VOD, but the survivors just aren't interested in doing that, or vice versa, a survivor who really needs that type of closure and the youth isn't ready to engage in that? Do you have tactics that you can work with either the youth or communities to provide this?
Yeah, so we don't approach these with the intention of, or we don't do the work of accompaniment with the intention of it finalizing in a victim offender dialogue. This is something that the survivors would need to come to. What we do is that we surround them with people. Many of them have participated in victim offender dialogues, and they share their experiences, right? If I have a case where one side wants to do it and the other side doesn't, we do what do you call them? Like by proxy. So we have had moms who wish they could have a dialogue with the person responsible for the harm, but that person isn't ready, and we'll bring them in contact with other folks that have served life sentences, that have taken lives, and that they can have dialogues with them. So what's that word I'm thinking of? They're not the actual person, but they are.
By proxy is, I think, appropriate.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. So we do those kind of things. Yeah. 2 of our colleagues at HDA participate in victim offender dialogue on the part of the victim, and 2 of our colleagues were the person responsible for the harm and did VODs as well. So we have folks on staff that also encourage those that we accompany to consider this.
And can I add something just to say, Liz, we are working, and hopefully to pass legislation where, the county will incorporate some kind of, process for victim offender dialogues in the juvenile system like they do in the state.
That sounds great. I know that, for the defense, as well as the prosecution, we all work with HDA and we rely on you a lot. Specifically, how the defense utilizes HDA. The HDA credible messengers are able to form deep and meaningful relationships with our youth in ways that, we as attorneys can't, because we don't have the same life experiences. We also don't spend the same amount of time in juvenile hall building those relationships. Jamie?
Yeah, and a lot of times, if there's a specific youth that, is struggling for a reason, we will ask HDA to reach out to that youth specifically to try and get to the bottom of what's going on, how we can help them, how we can keep them on track. I mean, HDA does so many wonderful things for our youth, but again, that deep, mentoring relationship between the credible messengers and the youth is at the base, is what's at the bottom of all of this, how they're able to help so many of our youth in ways that, like Liz said, the attorneys, DMH staff, they don't have that same relationship as they do with the credible messengers. So it's just amazing. And also the programming both inside SYTF and the reentry programming are just absolutely vital to keeping these youth on track, especially during that transitional time when they're coming home, when they may need even more support than they would have while they're inside at SYTF. So, I mean, we use them every single day, and they're just, our program would not be nearly as successful as it is without them.
And
Can I
often
also
we,
add, Jamie?
sorry, go ahead, Edwin.
I just want to say it's also vice versa. I think how this restorative justice work is the partnership we have with public defenders, with district attorney, and even with their honorable judges. Without those, and even probation, like without those, the collaboration partnership is why we're so impactful in this type of work. So I just want to highlight that part. I mean, we have many hours of back and forth and how we can find a common ground to, to approach the healing modalities.
Yeah, and it's really priceless, especially when we're talking about reentry, because, like we talked about, most of our clients have already, suffered trauma, and returning them to a place where, perhaps they don't have the support, or there's, traumas that are being re-triggered, is something that puts them in a very vulnerable position, and HDA can provide those reentry services. HDA is also, along with our other community-based organizations, is really priceless in with regards to, the role that they play in our IRPs, in our MDTs, in terms of, speaking, often we'll do MDTs when it's time to, talk about stepping a youth down to a less restrictive placement. And we'll sit down with the district attorneys and with, those partners that have something to say. And HDA really can speak a lot about the growth and about what a kid is ready for. And we welcome them to the table. And I think that the DAs rely on them, equally.
Could I say something there, Liz? Just, that is the basis of everything is the trust, right? There's one of the first SYTF young men got sent to the county jail and recently got released. And, I'm texting him, right? And like, we're not going to forget about him. The guys that went to the fire camps, that go to the CCCs, wherever they're going, like, we genuinely care. That's the difference, is we're not bringing in staff who just want to get paid. Like, we care about these people because they're us. We sat there. And when I go into juvenile hall, it was so easy for me to come in and tell a kid, like, who's there for you? Who do you have? And they say, I got my mom, but she's kind of like, she's what? Like my mom, on drugs and messed up? I know you're coming from. And then we're connected, right? And now we have a relationship. And that's how it is for most of our staff, is the deep relationship through, some of these most traumatic experiences that people have ever had. And then having somebody that can understand you and not judge you, right? It's been beautiful. And I just hope that all of us together can do better, right? Because we all need to do better and be more innovative and continue to collaborate more and just, we all need to do better. And I think that we have all the people here to make that happen. And I feel very, very optimistic about that. Thank you.
Lorena, you had something to say. You raised your hand.
I did, and it was just kind of piggyback off of what Josh was saying. Having support coming from someone who particularly normally would probably be really upset at these boys. It just shows them support and just gives them hope, and also helps them kind of find that like surrogate forgiveness, right? To help them move forward as well on through this, because when this happens, these kids get re-traumatized because they're already traumatized. So to hear it from people that have not just been through it, but people that have suffered through these traumas, it just kind of gives them a little bit more of that push to continue to do better.
Jane, Courtney, how do you guys rely on HDA as part of our court?
So the way that we use HDA is I like to start off with a warm handoff. And what I mean by that is I talk to the survivor or the family member, next of kin, and I explain to them what healing dialogue in action is. I answer any questions. I will provide them with the website. I will be very transparent about the fact that the organization also has an offender side. I, if possible, try to organize an in-person meeting in court. But, as a prosecutor, you really have to use your discretion on who would do best with an in-person meeting and who may be better able to process it over the phone or just a one-on-one separate from court. I always gauge someone's interest before I provide that referral to Healing Dialogue survivor side and let the victim or the survivor or next of kin know that, any questions they have, I'm more than able to answer them. I let them know that it's completely up to them. Everyone's healing journey is their own, and I will not take ownership of that. No one can. But I do offer it as a resource and let them know it's not a one size fits all recipe. This works for some people, doesn't work for everyone. It can work for some people at one point in their life and not work at another point in their life. So I really just try to be completely transparent. And I think that is well received. And I let people make that decision on their own. A lot of the time they'll see Healing Dialogue in court with the youth, and they will kind of be a little confused about what's going on. And I just offer them information about, this is an organization that has kind of two branches with the same one goal of restorative justice. And I give them an information. I'll send the referral usually to Lorena with the contact information. I'll ask the survivor or victim's next of kin how they'd like to be contacted. Sometimes it's phone, sometimes it's email, sometimes it's in person. I really try to give them the opportunity and the agency to make as many choices about their healing process as they would like. And I find that when they do engage with Healing Dialogue, and it is appropriate for where they are in their journey of healing, then it is an amazing collaboration and partnership. But, I think with that always, you have to know, just like some youth aren't ready for that dialogue, some victims and families aren't ready for that dialogue. And I let them know that they are completely valid in that and that there is no rush. This is their own healing journey. So that's kind of how I introduce it. And I kind of put it out there, put everything out there and let them know it's completely up to them. It has no bearing on anything else in court. It's just an additional resource that, I can link them to if they need it. And a lot of people say, yes, please. Some people say, I'll think about it. Some people say, no, thank you. And all of those answers are correct. So that's kind of how I handle from the prosecutor side, just that warm handoff. But the people who do want Healing Dialogue to accompany them, I have, great experience with that. And they enjoy that they have someone in there. Because when I'm in court, I'm at, counsel table. And as much as I kind of try to go back and forth, I have a very important job where I'm trying to make sure that, everything is the train is on the track and we are going towards rehabilitation. I try to make sure everyone's, being held accountable and everyone's making correct and good decisions. And having that second resource there to someone who's knows about the SYTF, knows about kind of the different journeys or pathways people can go once they're out of SYTF. I find it's really helpful for them to have someone who's not a lawyer talking to them kind of as a real person who's experienced these things. I've said a million times, like, I've never experienced this loss. I'm so sorry. It's hard for me. I can't say I know your sadness, but, I do know someone who has shared your sadness. And sometimes people just want someone to talk to. So I've found them incredibly great to work with.
I also work with the credible messengers. They keep me up to date on what's going on, the good, the bad, the neutral about what's happening with all my different cases. And I always say the more information I have, the better decisions I can make. So when we have credible messengers who are responsible and have the goal of having the youth return back to society and never cause this harm again, then they're very easy to work with because we have the same goals. So that is how we have used healing dialogue on the prosecution side.
And I think that, what we've all found from having healing dialogue show up in court is sometimes, for the families of the youth, for the youth themselves, for the survivors, sometimes they don't know what they need. They're just drowning. And having HDA there provides a lifeline. You never know who's going to be able to throw you that lifesaver, and perhaps that's their best role. Jamie?
Yeah, can you guys go to the last slide, please? So this, for anybody who's looking for contact information for HGA, Joshua is going to be probably your point man. So his email is on this last page. So please feel free to reach out to any of us or him for any questions you might have about the presentation. And I just want to thank everybody so much for your time. And also, I think we can stick around for a few questions if there's time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamie. There are 3 questions in the chat. And if anybody else comes up with any questions while we're answering these questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat and we will try to get them. And also, as Jamie indicated, all the emails for the presenters are on this last slide. So, and you will be getting all these materials. So feel free to reach them directly as well. All 3 questions pretty much have to do with the same thing, which is, so the first question is healing dialogue and action offered remotely?
Yeah, so we are in 6 state prisons up to like the Central Valley. We go up to the Central Valley. The victim offender dialogues that we do in the adult system take us up and down the state. But the services that we offer statewide are under contract with CDCR, the state government. So it's mostly with the adult population. The model that we have for SYTF is only in LA right now.
Okay. And that kind of, Javier, goes to the other questions, which I will kind of read together, which is, one question was, does HDA offer services in other counties? And does HDA only offer in Los Angeles County or have organization in other areas of the state? Which I think you kind of answered, but I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, it's only in LA County. What we just described, which is working with the SYTF, our wraparound approach to it, is only LA County right now.
Okay. And then another similar question came in that says, what resources are available to counties that do not currently have restorative justice resources for juvenile, I guess it means juvenile hall committed youth, but wish to explore creating restorative justice programming? Any ideas?
Yeah, contact Josh. We can start with that.
Yeah. And I would just say this for whoever's still, online. Healing Dialogue is in the middle of some significant changes in a lot of different ways. So, we're looking to upscale. We've thought about, eventually we want to be in different counties. We want to be able to serve more people in the state of California. So we're going to work towards that. Obviously people need it now, but it's definitely something that we've been talking about, and it's going to happen in the near future.
Well, thank you. And I think that is all the questions we have in the chat. Thank you so much to our presenters. And as I've indicated, I will be sending out the PowerPoint slides in a short while, along with the MCLE certificate. Please feel free to reach out to any of our presenters directly if you have any questions, any further questions, or want to talk to them privately. And thank you so much to our presenters. We really appreciate you sharing your stories and your time today. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.